But we turn now to the environment, where like stealth robbers at night, flooding is ravaging many communities across Nigeria if left unchecked. And worried by this, President Muhammadu Buhari has urged federal authorities and state governments to prioritize information from weather forecasts and avert further disasters, while sympathizing with families and other victims of floods occasioned by these constant downpours in the last few weeks, which have led to the loss of lives, homes and farms in 32 states of the Federation. Well, President Buhari has now blamed some governors whom he says failed to heed warnings about floods. Well, Sam, the government has, the federal government, the president has spoken on this, but where do you stand? Are you in support that indeed the state government ignored the flood warnings, you know, as released by NIMET and didn't do anything?
I'm struggling to, you know, situate the anger coming from, you know, the presidency. It's like chiding little kids and saying, "I will warn you not to do this. You didn't take any care," and all that. Again, that just tells you that a whole lot is wrong, you know, with our leadership and the management of resources that are at our disposal. Environmental issues have become a global challenge, no doubt about it. We've heard about global warming and all that. So the occurrence of floods all over the country is one that has been predicted, you know, over time. But how much of warnings that come from institutions that have been set up, you know, to guide our leaders in the area of managing the environment is what is at play here. I think that coming from the presidency, we should not take that outburst, you know, as a trivial matter. They should know, you know, what is playing out. But you want to give them credit because so much has been said about the ecological fund. So when the presidency spoke and said the states were warned and they didn't take any care, you know, it sends a reminder, you know, it should remind us of how we have managed the ecological funds, what the states, the resources that have been put at the disposal of the states to manage the environment. So even though the presidency didn't, you know, were not specific in terms of pointing accusing fingers, but I think for me, what is being said is like, things that have been put in place to help us manage the environment, you guys are not doing them. And it's my worry, you know, my concern that issues that have to do with funds that have been set aside are probably being mismanaged. There are so many, you know, reports out there of what states had done or had not done with those resources that have been, you know, specifically set aside to help manage, you know, issues, you know, concerning the environment. You talked about 32 states. Nigeria has 36. That simply says the entire country. That simply tells you nearly the whole country, you know, is facing the challenge of flood, and we need to deal with it. Otherwise, we all sink with it. Erosion, you know, all over the place. We're not able to tackle them, and the funds, you know, set aside to do it are probably being mismanaged and all that. A lot of reports out there, and it's not really very encouraging. Our governors need to do a lot more in terms of, you know, standing up to, you know, global environmental challenges.
Let me bring in Desmond Maja-Kodume. Of course, many of us know him, a renowned environmentalist. Mr. Maja-Kodume, welcome to Journalist Hangout Sunday Special. But talking about anti-flood measures provided by the federal and state governments, what do you read from where you are?
It's a laughable state, especially when we just reflect back on the remarks of the Secretary General of the United Nations 2 weeks ago, when the report from the International Panel for Climate Change came in. That is their 7-yearly report. And basically, the report said climate change is very real, that what we have done to the environment will definitely trigger off catastrophic consequences, which we are seeing right now As we're talking right now, in New York City, there's flood. In California, there's fire. In Nigeria, 2 days ago, there was flood. We are seeing the very reaction of what they said. But the Secretary General said that this is no longer a crisis. It is an emergency because time is running out to address the situation. And what he was talking about was the fact that we're driving up the average temperature of the Earth to a point whereby the heating of the Earth shall trigger off more release of more greenhouse gases, which will cause more heating, which will cause more aberrant weather conditions, which will definitely cause far more flooding. Also, that report said that no matter what we do now, the oceans shall rise by 1/4 of a meter within the next 10 to 20 years. So are we taking it seriously enough? Not at all. Not at all. Especially based on the fact that it was only last year where our dear president went to the global community and he promised that Nigeria is going to plant 25 million trees, because trees are one of the things that will help the situation, because they will draw down those greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. So far, we've only, as far as we've been able to know, because we were involved through some NGOs, we've only been able to plant about 5 to 6 million trees. This is after our president promised a year ago that we're going to plant the trees, and the trees will help with the flooding, especially if you plant them in the right areas, erosion, and also, as we said, sequestration. So definitely, we're not doing it. This is an emergency, but we should be very, very careful, because what it looks as if is happening is that nature, yes, nature is now fighting back. In fact, Secretary General also said that. He said mankind is waging war against nature, and this is suicidal because nature always fights back, and she's doing so with ferocity. And that's exactly what's happening. It's like a direct manifestation of laws of retribution. What you sow, you reap. So if anybody is messing around with funds, ecological funds or other funds that can help to ameliorate this, they should be very careful, because the lives of people will be directly upon their heads. This is the law of retribution. Otherwise, our scriptures are just fairy tales.
All right, Mr.
Majekodunmi, knowledge of scripture, they say action and reaction.
Mr. Majekodunmi, apologies for interrupting, but the rains are upon us now. From an environmentalist point of view, and despite the warnings issued by the agencies concerned, what quick fix solutions can we have now in Nigeria to avert disaster? Like Sam Ibemere said, 32 states in a country out of 36 plus the FCT. That's as good as saying almost everyone, almost every state. And Lagos, the commercial capital of the country, isn't left out. So what quick fix solutions, back to my question, can we have? I know you get asked that a lot of times, but for this specific flood episode, what do you make? What do you think we can do as residents and the government?
We have to be practical. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the first thing comes, in our minds. We now have to now start saying, okay, we need to do the right thing. We've been messing around with nature too much. There needs to be a lot of awareness, a lot of publicity for people. Just things like blocking drains, throwing plastic all over the place. That definitely doesn't help. And then the people need to rise up and demand for their governments to do the right kind of things with the drainage systems. Put correct, good drainage systems in place. It's not too late to do that and to start clearing drains. I've seen some drains that are being cleared, at least in Lagos. They seem to be doing the right thing now. But believe you me, there's a lot more that needs to be done. And then next year, we'll get over the floods. The floods will come, they will go. We pray they won't take too many people out. If they do, then those who are responsible for ensuring that the remedial actions were taken will certainly get a negative reaction. And then next year, we need to really, really concentrate and focus on this. It is an emergency. We shouldn't take it lightly. And the good news is that, hey, in order to solve the problem, we all got to come together and do the right thing. So clear the drains, don't throw rubbish all over the place, and plant hundreds and hundreds of millions of trees and stop the pollution. These things will certainly help.
Oh, all right, let me get to hear from Mr. Adeoye.
Yeah.
Okay, so does it appear to you that the federal government is exonerating itself as it blames certain state governors, or is it a matter of lack of proper coordination now between the state and the federal governments?
I think we don't have long-term and short-term plans. Even when it appears as if we have them, when it comes to implementation, the strategies are not effective. We are talking about ecological fund. That was since 1981. It was a Kigbo commission that was set up that made that recommendation. And they set up that office in 1985. That, we are talking about over 40 years. How many trees have we planted? We are talking about, look at Lagos State, for instance. I mean, Lagos tried. They said they planted about, and you could see some of those trees. And maybe Cross River, Ekiti State, and a few of them. But beyond that, go to our communities, our forest-dependent areas. People are coming from Lebanon, from China to cut down the trees for economic gains. The trees that we use, they used to manufacture red track. Chinese people come here, fall down the streets and take them away. Nobody cares. And that's not about federal government alone. It's about state government. It's about our communities. There is no consciousness on the part of our community leaders in terms of the fact that what we are seeing is environmental terrorism. It's destruction of our livelihood. Is a kind of, an attempt to destroy our future. And I think it's time for us to rise up, and we are not just talking about federal government alone. Communities, people must be conscious that once those trees and the beautiful flowers are gone, the fauna and all that, then we are gone. Because that is what we depend on to live on. It's our future, it's our mother. So it's a collective effort. It's not just about the federal government alone. Communities must also rise up to this occasion. And I think I agree with him that we are in an emergency situation. The impact on biodiversity, the impact of on natural water, the impact on food chain, is terrible. And we just need to do something. For now, I don't think we are serious about taking effective measures. All
right. So, BKO, you have the final bite on the flood situation in Nigeria. What's the way out for you?
We've got to do our best in the area of flood management, because really these are natural occurrences. We cannot stop flooding, but we've got to manage flooding better. When we bear in mind the dangers inherent in flooding, for example, the cholera outbreak that we have experienced in Katsina and many other states, a lot of it was caused by flooding. A lot of it was caused by flooding. And you can see that in a place like Katsina, more than 1,500 houses have been destroyed, and 800 in Faskari alone, and 300 in Sabua local government. So, and many of their roads flooded. Many people have lost their means of livelihood, their crops, their houses. So, we've got to manage this situation better. And we allow people, even in urban centers, we allow people to build houses on floodplains. And government lacks the political will to remove those houses built on floodplains, because some of them are owned by untouchables in our society. As long as we tolerate such aberrant behavior, it will be difficult to stop flooding. And then the way our people dump waste indiscriminately into drains, they won't allow the drains to do their job of keeping our roads flood free, because by the time you clog those drains, then the water must find another outlet. So this is the problem that we face. I just pray that this year will not be as bad as the year 2012, when a lot of our communities were ravaged by flood and we lost many lives. So the president has issued a warning. At every level, we must take action to control flooding and mitigate the pains that it inflicts on our people year on year.